Chapter 5. Amelia Vernon. Sadly, for every phase of happiness, they say one of woe and tragedy followed, and vice versa. A few weeks after my birthday, a storm struck the Kentish coast. It was a terrible one, and strong winds damaged trees and houses. Yet I battled the winds and ran up the cliff to see where Father's boat was. I could hardly keep my footing as the brutish winds fought me back. I suddenly heard distant screams and cries for help, and as I approached the cliff, I witnessed the horror with my own eye. Father's boat capsized on the merciless wave, and I screamed, "No!" By the time I reached the shore, many people from the town had gathered, and a lifeboat was sent to rescue the survivors. Pastor Franklin, whom Father had introduced me to once on a visit to the local church, hurried to me and held me tight. There now, child, don't you worry," he consoled me as tears ran down my cheeks. There were no survivors that day. I stood on the shore in the blistering winds for hours with Pastor Franklin holding me. In truth, I would have collapsed had he not held on tight, and I eventually did when they recovered Father's lifeless body. At that very moment, I felt my life was over. My father, my one and only guardian angel, had so tragically been taken from me, leaving me all alone to face this cruel world. I had no one, and most worryingly, I had not a tuppence in my pocket. The pastor took me to the local church where he covered my trembling body with a blanket. "My dear, what happened to your father was devastating, as was the fate of the rest of the fishermen. All I can say to console you, dear child, is that he is in a better place now, and that this is all God's will. We cannot question it, and we cannot understand it. I know no words of mine can ease your sorrow and anguish, but never feel you are alone. I shall always treat you like a daughter." As Pastor Franklin said these heart-rending words and patted my arm, I heard footsteps approaching. "Ah, Miss Vernon, thank goodness you're here," he exclaimed. Though I was in a state of utter sorrow, I turned to see who the visitor was. To my utmost amazement, I saw the woman from the house on the cliffs. Under normal circumstances, her sight would have filled my heart with joy, as I had thought a great deal about her since that first encounter. But I was too paralyzed with grief to react. She was startled at seeing me. She must have remembered the impostor that I was, I thought to myself. This was the first time I had an opportunity to see her closely. She was a middle-aged woman of medium height, with slim facial features, soft brown eyes, and chestnut-brown, long, wavy hair. She was aristocratic as well. She wore a dark velvet gown and a pearl necklace around her neck, and she smelled of a scent I could only imagine was a sweet Arabian fragrance. I was, on the other hand, in shabby and stinking raiment, a frail-looking creature with dark hair tied in a bun and pale skin. I looked undernourished, and I was certain Miss Vernon would condemn me as an untouchable. But she didn't. I couldn't believe my senses when she bent down and embraced me. "I am so terribly sorry for your loss, my dear," she whispered sweetly. Pastor Franklin said, "Being a patron of our beloved church, Miss Vernon has been generous enough, dear Eleanor, to offer you a place at her home. She used to be your guardian and your benefactor." "Not now, Pastor Franklin," Miss Vernon exclaimed humbly. "If only this world had more generous people like you in it, Miss Vernon," the pastor gently bowed to her. As we left the church, I saw a dark, horse-drawn carriage waiting majestically before us. Miss Vernon waved at the driver. "Take us home now, will you, Hugo?" I was shocked to see the same sinister-looking man with the moustache. He looked at me suspiciously, narrowing his sharp grey eyes. but obeying his mistress. Very well, Miss Vernon. Hugo tapped the reins impatiently until the horses started trotting. We passed by the lonely town centre of Whitstable and the destitute public house where our lodgings were. Bereaved families stood huddled together, mourning the loss of their loved ones. I was woebegone and had sunk into a state of muteness. My only source of comfort, however, was Miss Vernon, and I held on to her all the while like a small child. I never knew what a mother's love was until she wrapped her arms around me. The carriage went uphill along the serpentine roads in the direction of the cliffs where I used to wait for father, until we entered the premises of the same stone castle which had consumed my imagination for months. When we got off the carriage, I saw the structure for the first time in full view. It was a real castle with grey stone walls and towers. The lush garden that lay ahead had colonnades and a collection of stone statues, most with dreary and dismal expressions. A glossy marble statue of a cherub stood in a lovely lily pond with sparkling water, and around it were daffodils. This is my family home. My ancestors have lived here for centuries. It used to be a Catholic monastery in the days before the Reformation, and we call this garden the Italian garden for its antique statues and colonnades, Miss Vernon explained. Though I was overwhelmed by her affections and intentions, I felt a sort of ill-omened presence. It was as though this stone castle was whispering a secret to me, one which unnerved me and sent a chill down my spine. Miss Vernon, I attempted to speak, but she interrupted me. No doubt I am much older than you, dear child, but I should like you to call me Amelia, she said kindly. Oh, I don't know how to thank you, Miss Vernon. I mean Amelia. She again interrupted me. I told you not to thank me, Eleanor. Vernon Hall is your home as much as it is mine. Now come inside with me. It was at that moment I learned that this mysterious house, or stone castle as it appeared to be, had a name, and it was called Vernon Hall. How it seduced me, and how it repelled me at the same time. I knew not what lay ahead, but blindly stepped into this unknown world with a woman I hardly knew, but felt I had known all my life.